You're listening to the British Baseball Podcast. Joining me on today's episode of the British Baseball Podcast, I'm really chuffed to have alongside me Mr. Earl Dix. Earl, how are we doing?
I'm good, thank you very much, Matt, and thanks very much for inviting me. I feel very humbled, given all the giants of British baseball that you have interviewed, and I remember some of those interviews. They've been really good. Gavin Marshall, Liam Carroll, Will Linton, and I loved that interview with Matt Moran a couple of weeks ago. That really touched me, and then. And he shouted out Jonathan Cramin, who's that interview that you did with him was also really touching, and it's just a brilliant thing that you're doing. Oh yeah, and that one you did. I mean, I can only call it a jam session with Chris Ward and J-Rod. That was amazing. That was just a great,
I'll tell you some stuff about that after we finish recording. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was quite an interesting night. That it was good. I wish I'd just left the episode recording so just that little bit longer towards the end.
Oh really?
Yeah. It was good. I love talking to him. And thank you so much for the compliments. It means a lot to me, especially coming from a person of your stature in the British baseball community.
You're very kind.
You're all giants to me. Like, you can have your Mike Trouts and your Nolan Arenados in the MLB, but everyone that I see out there in the fields on a Sunday, the names pop up in those score boxes when I'm looking through the British and Irish scoreboard. They're my favourite players within baseball.
Cool.
I just love it. I think it's a great sport, great community, and that's why I do the show.
And that's a brilliant thing you're doing. You're doing this for British baseball, and that's what's so brilliant about it.
I hope so.
Cool.
I'd like to call this series "Getting to Know." Let's get to know Earl Dix. Earl, do you want to start us off? How did you get involved in baseball? Is it a family thing, or is it just something that you started the ball rolling?
Well, I was brought up in South Africa. I was born in a Royal Navy hospital. And I was brought up in South Africa, and I had a fairly turbulent childhood. We never stayed in one place for long. My parents divorced early. My dad was he was a chronic alcoholic, and he ended up in jail for bank robbery. So I had very few focused roots, and it wasn't until I lived in a place called Maitland in Cape Town that I found baseball. This was about the age of 10, and the club kind of really welcomed me, and I played there for about 3 years, from the age of 10 to 13, and I remember really finding a focus and finding something that I really loved doing and that I could do. I wasn't an exceptional talent, but I could hit, and I had a bit of speed, and I really loved doing it. So that's where my involvement in baseball started. And I remember when I was 13, because every week we used to get a selection slip in a post, and I got a selection slip for the senior men's team. It was their third team, because they had about 5 or 6 teams in the club. And I got selected at the age of 13 for this senior men's team. And I remember, I can still remember that feeling of being valued, that somebody saw that in me. And I think that sense of being valued, baseball valued me. I think that's never left me. So anyway, we moved again, and I moved into teenage years. My turbulent childhood became a very troubled adolescence, and I lost touch with baseball and all other sport, really. And And then my mum died when I was 21, and I started traveling around South Africa. I spent 3 years in Johannesburg. I had an absolutely brilliant time there. Met up with some musicians and played in a few bands and things like that. But I always thought that one day I would end up in the UK, because it was what I thought was my heritage, my legacy. So in 1975, I arrived here, and then I think it might have been in 1976. There's a magazine called Time Out. I saw there was a baseball game just down the road. I lived in a place called Barnes, and just down the road, a short bus ride, was it Rosslyn Park Rugby Club? It was a twilight league, and I saw the Sutton Braves, and I think it was a team called the Spirit of 76. And I kind of bookmarked that. I wasn't ready. I wasn't settled yet, and I wasn't ready to commit to baseball, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do one day. And when I was settled in 1980, I phoned them up, and I joined the Sutton Braves. So that was the beginning of my journey in British baseball. They wanted me to. They were one of the top teams at the time, and you'll have heard of Alan Bloomfield, who's in the British Baseball Hall of Fame. He was 15, 16-year-old in that team at the time, and his dad was the coach. And I turned up. They said, "Look, we want to try you out. Come and have a go." So I turned up at a game, and they stuck me in the lineup. And I remember making this real fantastic backflip catch in right field, and I went 4 for 4. So they said, "You're just a bit rusty, and you can you can join." And afterwards, a coach came up to me and said, "You went 4 for 4." And I didn't actually know what 4 for 4 meant. And I thought, oh, well, must be good, because they've asked me to join. And that was the story from there. Unfortunately, it was a long time before I went 4 for 4 again.
Well, at least you made it. I'd be happy if we get a bit of contact. I'm not saying useless. I'm just saying not as good as I want to be.
I was watching the contact you made on, was it YouTube?
Yeah.
Your GoPro. And that's the beginning of a really decent swing you got. And I could hear they were going. They were line drives.
Yeah, there's a reason why you can't see where the ball ends up in the shot. It's just in the back. Yeah, but yeah, it went right. Whew, yeah, it's still flying, that ball. Yeah, it's not come down. So just taking back then with you, said you had quite a turbulent childhood. Just how important then was baseball to you? Was it more of a focal point? Was it your escape? How important?
It was. I was that kid that turned up to training all the time. I was there early, and I was there late, and it was something with the coaches there. They gave me a sense of feeling good about myself, and I think, when I think about what it was, why it was, when I saw there was a baseball game being played in Rosslyn Park, what was it that made me go, actually, I want to go and see that, and when I think about it, I think it's that that emotional kind of urge that I had about the experiences I had at Maitland Baseball Club. Just a pity that, because the situation of my mother, single parent in South Africa in those days, was a very difficult thing to be. So, but yeah, I definitely think those 3 years did something for me, and made me love baseball as much as I have come to love it.
Yeah. Who's your MLB team?
New York Mets.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Y word then. It's like, why is everybody that comes on this show?
Oh, I know. I don't know either.
That's cool. So what was your journey like within British baseball? How after you had that your settling in period. What were some of the high points throughout it? So you started off in the 80s. Do you want to tell us about
So
the
yeah,
80s, 90s, and
it was 1980, and then I played with Sutton Braves, and then I joined a club called Hounslow Baseball Club, and because I lived in Hounslow actually, and getting to Sutton was a real journey, and they were a top team, and I don't think that I was really up to that level at the time, and I thought I'd drop down a standard and go to Hounslow, which was only 10 minutes away from where I lived anyway. And but I spent quite a long while there. I became a coach and I helped out with the administration. We had quite a few teams. We became one of the biggest teams in the country at the time. At one time, I think we had four senior men's teams, a small youth program, and we had 2 women's softball teams. And we'd go and tour Holland because we had some friends there, and that was excellent. And after Hounslow, I joined Hearts. So I joined Hearts as a coach. So they were called Bushy Falcons at the time,
yeah,
and it was their first year in BBF leagues, and I became the head coach, and we moved from the 3rd division at the time to the 1st division in 4 years, and then in the 5th year, I guess because the Hearts team at the time, a great bunch of guys, a mix of experienced players and rookies, and I'd kind of take them as far as I could. But also, my son was just getting to the age where he could start playing t-ball, and I knew they had a t-ball program at Windsor, which, as you know, was where the club that John Boyd built.
Yeah.
And so I took Jamie there, and I also played for Windsor. And then when after Windsor, I moved on to the London Mets, played at London Sports for 5 years. It was a great club, and there were 500-600 kids there every weekend, and my son really improved playing there. It was every Saturday and Sunday, and I also coached there a bit, won 2 championships at London Sports, and then moved to the London Mets, where my son started playing, and I became a youth coach. And when he moved into the adult team, that's when I stopped coaching, except for 1 year, when I had the great privilege to be Jonathan Crammond's assistant coach, 2017, and he became the youngest manager to win the NBL. So I think that that about covers it. But yeah, I've had it's been really brilliant, and I've met some of the absolutely nicest people you could hope to meet.
Yeah, they're a great bunch. Yeah, everyone that I've spoken to so far, again, whether been on the show or not, just general chat in the forums. Such a great community to be a part of.
Yeah.
Would you say that time in 2017 with Coach Cameron was one of the highlights in your career?
It was the first time that I'd had that that winner's moment, when you go. I didn't join the dog pile. All the players were in the dog pile, because if I joined the dog pile, my bones might not have survived it. But it was the first time I had that feeling of utter, total elation at winning something and knowing that I was a part of it. And it was absolutely brilliant highlight of my entire baseball career in the UK. Yeah.
So when did you move into coach from player to coach? Natural transition, or did you just sort of think,
yeah,
I need to stop playing, but I want to stay involved in the game?
I was a player coach with Hearts Falcons, or Bushy Falcons as they were called then. And over the 5 years that I was there, I started playing quite a lot, and then over the years I didn't play as much. I put myself in fewer and fewer times, and so I kind of wasn't really playing all that much at the end of my time at Hearts. But when I joined Windsor, I wasn't coaching, I was just a player, and I really enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed just being a player again. And it was at Windsor when I actually stopped playing. I remember coming down to winter training once, and I was 55, and I suddenly realised, they were hitting ground balls to me and this other second baseman, and I suddenly realised I'm competing for my spot with an 18-year-old, and I thought, this is this can't happen. So I just played that. I made that my final season at the age of 55, and since then I've just been, taking care of my son wherever, whichever team he's been playing for, really. And now I just, I just turn up and watch my son play. I don't have to do anything else, and of course, needless to say, I'm very proud of his achievements. I play my baseball vicariously. Oh yeah, I still play baseball, but it's vicariously through Jamie now. And I'm pleased to say, in the NBL, I hit 650 this year, so I'm doing well.
Nice. Good skills. Get that one on Project Cobb. Get them stats over. That's brilliant. With you being involved for almost 40 years within the British baseball scene, how have you seen it change over time, either for better or for worse? And how do you see baseball at the moment?
Well, I've seen. I remember when we had our national finals. I think it was the Humberside Mets and the Cobham Yankees at the Oval. It was a national league sponsored by an insurance company whose name I've forgotten now, and it really looked like baseball was going to take off. There were about 2,000 people at the Oval that day watching the British baseball final, and for me, because I wasn't involved at any level, and it never occurred to me to stand for election for the board or anything, because it was going really well, and there's nothing I could add. I was in the grassroots. I was organising club baseball and doing that kind of thing, and we had a brilliant time. And we had these what they called Final Fours at Brighton as well. I don't know if you've been to the Brighton ground. When they built it, it was absolutely brilliant. It was the baseball diamond had dugouts, and it was looked after and maintained beautifully. And we had the Final Fours there over, I think it was the bank holiday weekend.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of us would go down to Brighton for the weekend, and we would just enjoy. It was an absolute festival of baseball, and easily 1,000 people used to turn up there over the weekend. And the finals were, for teams from all over the country, north and south, and it usually ended up there's the final between a northern team and a southern team, and they were just carefree baseball days. And we thought I thought that this would just carry on and would get bigger and bigger. And I can't put my finger on what happened, but it's not in that place at the moment, which is a shame, you know.
Do you think it's achievable to get back to how it was?
Well, we need people who can drive, and people with vision, and also people with money. I can't, you know, I'm having difficulty seeing where we go from here, because I don't know how in touch you are with current politics. It's probably best not to be, but the landscape doesn't, you know, look that good at the moment, and I can't see where we can really, how we can really dig ourselves out of what's happening at the moment, you know. Especially in comparison to those days, we had some absolutely brilliant times, you know.
Yeah. You actually got to one of the highest levels within British baseball and became the BBF president of the British Baseball Federation.
Yeah.
What was that process like? How did you sort of decide it was something you wanted to do and throw your hat in the ring for?
Well, I think it might have been in 2008 to 2009 when I'd joined in, when my son joined London Mets, and I got to see how baseball had been organised, and I got to see who the people were on the board. And it never occurred to me before to even, you know, worry about that. As far as I was concerned, baseball was being organised. We were playing it. My son was playing baseball. But we saw things happening, and in British baseball that wasn't good. And we saw people in British baseball who weren't good for the sport. And a group of us got together and we campaigned and organised Mark Salter to become president. I used to be a trade union rep and a Labour Party activist, so I gave you know, my experience in electioneering. I used that to get a slate, a BBF board slate, up and running, and we managed to get rid of a few people off the board, and but the struggle just didn't seem to stop. You know, Mark Salter, he resigned before the end of his term, and it was just an ongoing struggle. So I had no intention of becoming president. When Mark became president, Paul Vernon was the youth commissioner, and there was a post on the board called assistant youth commissioner. It was co-opted, and because I'd been active in the campaign to get Mark and that slate onto the board, he asked me, do I want to help him with Southern Youth Commissioner? So I helped him, which gave me a position on the board, and I saw how the board worked and how the politics worked, and you know, I saw the machinations of British baseball. And I think it was 6 or 7 years later when the presidential vacancy happened, and a couple of my colleagues on the board suggested I stand for president. And it never occurred, you know, I never really chased it, but it just kind of evolved into that. And it was an interesting period. I was on the board of BSUK as well as president, and it was it was an interesting period.
What sort of things did you oversee in your time as president?
Well, I think do you know, for me, a governing body's job is do the fixtures, do the results, keep the stats, look after the GB program, which is what the national teams officer does, and then look to developing and seeing how we can get our sport into the mainstream. And of course, we got BS UK, our development agency, a very strong partner in that. And it's very important for a British Baseball Federation board to work closely with them. So for me, it's quite straightforward. But you know, there are other things that distract you. Things that come up and blindside you, and you haven't been prepared for it, and those kind of things can take away your focus on actually, you know, doing things like schedules and stats and that kind of thing. So yeah.
I had a question coming from Liam Blease, which will tie nicely into this. And it's a few years ago you elected as BBF president, but like so many others elected to the board before you, you resigned before your term was up. What can you tell us of the pressures that come with holding such a role within British baseball?
Well, in my instance, and look, as I said, the very fundamental roles that a British baseball governing body should do, and but the reason I resigned early was basically the board meetings became unpleasant. The atmosphere in the board was toxic, and it's just one or two individuals. And I think you'll find Mark Salter, Ian Marchment, and other presidents before me had experienced the same kind of thing. And really, the pressures of the work, it's not difficult. You have to work hard, and you have to work, you know, long hours, because I had a day job as well. But it's all fairly straightforward work. It's, you know, that's not where the pressure comes from. For me, the pressure came from a sense of toxicity on the board. And, you know, I'm a family man, I'm a volunteer, and I walked away. It just had become just too unpleasant to do. So that's why, you know, that is a pressure of being in that position. I think you'll find other presidents have had the same kind of pressure. Yeah.
Would you say that experience actually put you off baseball? Did you think, was there any time where you thought, I don't want anything more to do with it, or was baseball always going to be there regardless?
Do you know, I love baseball no matter what. And interesting you ask that question, because one of the things I wish what happened, that when I did resign, I wish I stopped caring. But unfortunately, I still care, and I am still passionate about British baseball. And I, you know, it's difficult to let go, not in the sense of, you know, I'm losing sleep or anything, but watching what's going on, it's difficult. Yeah, it would have been good if I stopped caring, but I still have the passion. I still have all the passion for British baseball that I had, you know, when I first started. You know, oh my God, should I really admit this? Because I was 29 at the time. I used to sleep with my glove.
I'm not editing out, so it's there.
I still have that same passion, although my glove is put away in the garage for a long time.
That's lovely. So let's try and make things a little bit more upbeat. Normally, I like to ask my guests like who their like favorite coaches were, teammates who left a good impression on you. But I'm just going to change a little bit now. So I'm going to mention some names to you. I'd like you to tell me what comes to mind about, not so much like abilities or personalities, what kind of people they were and how they are or what they were to you. So I'm going to start off with Jim Lefevre.
Well, actually, Jim Lefevre, he was LA Dodgers 1962, an infielder. I was just beginning to formulate my ideas about coaching. Now, remember I said in 1980, I was 29 when I joined Sutton Braves. I didn't know what 4 for 4 meant. So I was very much at the beginning of my baseball journey. And I was beginning to formulate my coaching philosophy. And I think it was early 90s, we had a series of clinics. I remember one clinic, there was Bill Buckner. One clinic, there was Buck Rogers. There was, who was the Dutch pitcher with a Dutch name? I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. But one clinic, the lead coach was Jim Lefevre. And he really woke me up to so many different things that I hadn't known about before. He woke me up to muscle memory. He woke me up to visualization and fundamental coaching philosophies and game philosophies, which I carry with me to this day. And now I understand that, certain techniques, batting techniques, catching techniques, fielding techniques have changed. But those underlying philosophies have stayed with me. And I remember one of the things that he was talking about, muscle memory at this coaching clinic, and we were hitting off a tee. And he said, you should be able to do this blindfolded. And when I joined Hearts Falcons, that's exactly what I did. I got them to hit a baseball off a tee blindfolded. And a couple of weeks after this clinic, there was an MLB festival in Covent Garden, and I saw Jim Lefevre there, and I did want to ask him something else actually from that clinic. I didn't quite get how he was explaining how to hit inside pitches. So I said, look, could you just go over that again? And he showed me. And I said, by the way, I'm thinking of coaching my players, hitting blindfolded off a tee. And he said, what a brilliant idea. He said, what you'll also find is you'll find the people with confidence who can do that. And you'll find some of the players whose confidence you might need to, help develop.
Yeah.
So I used that. It was only in Hearts Falcons, and I remember we used to at practice we used to play full games blindfolded, and in fact there were times when I thought I hit ball much better blindfolded than I did than I did looking at the ball on a tee. So and those kind of underlying philosophical things, they never quite leave you. You do change with the times, but Jim Lefevre was a real influence on me.
Okay, that's lovely. That's a great thing as well about the blind hitting. That's cool. Mine's blind hitting anyway. Pitches go past me so fast I don't see the ball anyway. Next name I've got for you is Bob Feller.
Oh yeah, Bob Feller. Well, he obviously everybody knows Bob Feller. He came over to the UK for a while because he was very good friends with Barry Mayfield, who was at Hounslow Baseball Club. They'd been pen pals for many years when you used to write letters, and he came over to the UK for a while. And I remember doing a coaching session with him at Hounslow, and we were all standing around, and he was showing us some pitching techniques, and someone said, "Oh, Bob, can you still throw a curveball?" And he said, "Oh, I think I can do that. Can somebody go and catch?" And I stupidly said, "I'll do that," because I was very keen and eager. So I went down to home plate, put on a catcher's mitt and a mask, and went into the crouch position, and I suddenly thought, oh my God, I'm catching Bob Feller. and I can remember my throat dried, my heart started pounding. And then I remember seeing a glimpse of sun behind him, and I was thinking, I'm not even going to see this ball. and I could see all the other guys standing around him with a smirk on their faces. And I could see them going, oh, thank God I'm not doing that. And anyway, he got into his position, threw the ball down, and I caught it. I was really, really glad, and I didn't want to do that anymore. But that was a lesson in putting your hand up too quickly.
Yeah, indeed. Careful what you wish for. And the last name I'm going to throw out there is Jamie Dix.
Oh, Jamie Dix.
Who's he?
Yeah, well, he's my son. I'm very proud of him. He's played for Great Britain in every age group he's been. And last year he played, he made the seniors as a rookie as well. And actually, he has taught me so much about baseball as he was growing up. He's had some huge influences in his life. Some of the British baseball giants you've interviewed. He's, Liam Carroll, Will Linton, and of course, his current coaches, Drew Spencer and Jonathan Cramen. So I've kind of learned vicariously through those people, although there have been times when he'd come home and say, oh, do you know what Coach Will told me? And then he'd say, oh, Coach Will told me, do this. And I'm thinking, actually, I think I told you that a couple of weeks ago, but, it's only right now that Coach Will has told him. They have been instrumental in his coaching and his playing journey, and vicariously, they've taught me about coaching too, and it's been brilliant. They are absolutely, brilliant people. And Jamie's had Jonathan Cramen has been a real big influence, because Jamie used to play second base, and then when John became the coach at London Mets, he moved Jamie into the outfield, and what happened was that 3 years later he was playing outfield for the GB senior team. So for whatever reason Jonathan did that, it was absolutely spot on. So those coaches, if they've affected my son, they've affected me too.
That's cool. That's great. Thank you very much for that. If you had a chance to do it all again, what would you change? Or would you just do everything the same?
I'd practice more. I'd find more I'd find somebody who could teach me a bit more about fielding techniques and hitting techniques. I had my moments in the sun. I was looking through some memorabilia the other day, and I spent quite a few years at Hounslow hitting, 400, 450. So I've had my moments, but I've never been a particular talent. I've been that guy, that club guy that turns up, and fills the spots.
A good teammate.
So, but no, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great. If you had one wish for British baseball, what would it be?
One issue.
One wish.
One wish. Do you know what? All I want to do actually is go to a baseball game on a Wednesday or a Friday evening or Saturday evening with a couple of thousand people, and you know, watch a game of baseball, have a drink, and have something to eat. So I look forward to you know, to the day that we can do that. So, and you know, I don't think it's an impossible dream. I'm sure it could happen, and I think there are, as I said earlier, you know, we need somebody with a vision and the wherewithal, and of course the money as well. I mean, you know, I think I can't let I can't let it go that Liam Carroll's just resigned, and we've got a new GB head coach. And you know, if I was going to choose somebody, Drew would be, you know, the natural choice. And I remember, in fact, when Sam retired from, I can't remember his surname now, this is dreadful, Sam Dempster, when he retired from GB head coach, I remember at the time we had to fill that spot, and we did it all, you know, properly. We had because there wasn't a lot of governance in GB at the time. We put out an advertisement. There were 26 applications from all over the world, including one who would have needed an interpreter. We narrowed it down to 3 on a short list, and we interviewed 3 people, including Liam, with really, really serious baseball credentials. And Liam turned up to the interview with the genesis of the GB way, you know. So appointing Liam, I think, you know, you were going back to my time as president. I think if I was going to say the one really good thing I did during my time as president was appointing Liam. And then after that, I gave him a template. I sat down with the national team's official, who was Marty Cullen at the time, and I set a template, a vision that I wanted to see, an under-12 team in the official GB program, and I wanted all the teams in all the GB age groups to be playing in Europe, because what used to happen at the time is they'd go and play in tournaments which weren't international tournaments against other national teams, and you know, they were pointless. And I thought, you know, we're a member of the Confederation of European Baseball, and I think all our teams, our GB teams, should be playing in Europe. And actually, that vision was realised last year when every single GB team, from under 12 to the senior team, played in Europe in 1 year. So, and you know, Liam oversaw that, and he made sure that happened, and that's brilliant. We're going to miss him dreadfully.
Yeah.
But as I said, when I heard that he'd resigned, I thought, well, you know, who else is out there? And my mind turned to Drew. So I couldn't think of anyone better in the UK at the moment to be in that place. And what's really brilliant is he's part of the GB way. He, you know, he's seen the British baseball landscape. He's contributed to local clubs, you know, the London Mets. And he's, you know, he's, even though he's a relative newcomer, he's already deeply encultured into British baseball, takes it seriously, understands that we, you know, we are all passionate about it. And, you know, I think he's going to really do a good job.
Yeah. I think you hit nail on the head there. Well, gutted when Liam announced it, but that flame staying extinguished didn't last for long. When I heard that Drew got it, I was really excited. I think it's in great hands. Like I said, if Liam left some pretty big shoes to fill, I think Drew's got some pretty big feet to fill himself. So yeah. What was Liam's interview like? I don't want to know the details of it, but was he like superb? Did he completely blow you away, or was it?
Well, he came. He'd already worked it all out. And that's what I think really impressed us. He knew what he wanted to do, where he was going. He brought a laptop along with him, and he showed us statistics and numbers, and which I can't remember now, but I do remember that he had done a lot of detailed research, and he knew exactly what he was going to do. As I said, it was a genesis, because obviously as he went along, other things developed in the GB program, and he was very, very engaging, and it was a brilliant interview. And after the interview, it was quite clear. And also, he understood. He was brought up, which I really liked. He was brought up in Britain. He had a deep understanding of the GB setup, because he'd been in the GB setup for quite a while, and he understood what he needed to do with it. And he had that vision in his head, and I think Marty and I, who interviewed him, and along with Glenn Robertson, well, maybe I can't speak for Marty and Glenn, but in retrospect, that vision he showed me, I only got probably 5 or 10% of that, but he already had that bigger vision in his head, but then that's why he is Liam Carroll, and that's why he's got he's got our program to where it is today, an internationally recognized program. Yeah. And that was definitely, if I was to walk away from the presidency, when I walked away from the presidency, I think that was the single best thing I did for British baseball, because, and again, it's not just the GB program that he's influenced. It's all of British baseball. He's infiltrated everywhere, hasn't he?
Yep. Yeah, indeed, he has. Earl, I think that's about it for the rest of the show. And as usual, I like to leave the last bit open to guests. So anything you want to say before we go? Any shout outs? Anyone you want to give thanks to?
Oh, shout outs. If I shout out, then I'm going to miss somebody, and I don't want to do. There are so many good people around at the moment, and I know that people are working hard to improve our sport. It's working hard in the background, in clubs, and all over the grassroots. People are working to improve our sport. But again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. What I want to do is go and watch a game of baseball, another couple of thousand people on a Wednesday, Friday, Saturday night, have a drink and something to eat, and have a local team to cheer on, who's with players whose names I know, who are probably getting paid for their for playing, probably some pros and some semi-pros. It happens all over Europe, and I just want that to happen here too.
Yeah, it's a great dream and a great vision to have. Earl, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic, Matt. Once again, I'm really humble that you asked me on the show. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
No, I really appreciate you giving me your time and for agreeing to do it.
Brilliant.
Well, I wish you all the best. Oh, good.
Maybe I'll see you at the Battle of Britain, by the way. Oh, yes. And one other thing.
Yeah.
Happy birthday for tomorrow.
Thanks, dude. Thank you. This has been recorded on a Wednesday. My birthday's a Thursday, and I can't think of a better way to spend birthday eve. In fact, I'm going to go and do something really nerdy and watch some Star Trek and have some ice cream. That's how rock and roll.
Oh, cool. Fantastic.
My nights are, and I wouldn't change anything.
Cool. Thank you very much, Matt.
No problem. Take it easy.
Okay.
I'll see you
Talk later.
Bye-bye.